The mansion stood like a palace, shining with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and endless rooms filled with luxury. But behind its walls lived a silence that money could not break. The millionaire, once proud of his success, carried a weight heavier than gold could ever buy. His little daughter, the only light in his life, was battling cancer. Day after day, her small body grew weaker, her laughter fading into quiet sighs. He had tried everything. The best hospitals, the most celebrated doctors, the latest treatments, nothing brought comfort to her tired eyes. Nannies came and went, each one promising care, but they could not fill the emptiness she carried. They treated her like a fragile glass doll, unable to truly reach her heart. The child withdrew further into her own pain, and even the grand halls of the mansion seemed colder without her laughter. At night, the millionaire would sit by her bedside, his hand holding hers, wishing his wealth could buy back her smile. But her gaze often drifted away, lost in a world of suffering no one around her could touch. Despite the sparkle of diamonds and the hum of luxury cars outside, the house felt like a hollow shell. Every corner whispered of loneliness, every room echoed with silence. For all his riches, the one thing he could not purchase was the joy and healing his daughter so desperately needed. And that realization broke him more than poverty ever could. One quiet morning, when the air in the mansion felt heavier than usual, a new maid arrived. She was different from the others who had come before. She carried no fancy degrees, no polished accent, and no air of superiority. Instead, she walked in with gentle eyes and a calm presence, as though she belonged not to the world of wealth, but to the world of hearts. The millionaire had hired her with little thought, almost out of exhaustion from endless replacements. Yet, when she stepped into the child's room, something changed. She didn't flinch at the sight of the pale girl lying weakly on the bed. She didn't speak in hushed tones as if afraid the child might break. Instead, she smiled warmly, sat on the floor beside the bed, and began humming a soft tune, a song that carried warmth like sunlight breaking through clouds. The little girl's eyes lifted, curious. For the first time in months, she wasn't being fussed over with medicines or treated like a patient. The maid asked her name as though she was meeting a new friend, not a sick child. Then, slowly, she told her a story, her voice rich, her words weaving images of courage and magic. The girl's lips curled into the faintest smile, fragile yet real. From the doorway, the millionaire stood frozen, watching. Something so simple, so human, had stirred a spark in his daughter. A spark no money had been able to buy. It was the beginning of something he couldn't yet understand. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between the maid and the little girl grew deeper with each passing moment. She was no longer just a caretaker, she became a companion, a storyteller, and, most importantly, a source of joy. Instead of forcing medicines into trembling hands, she offered crayons and blank sheets of paper. Together they painted sunsets, castles, and flowers, each stroke of color breathing life back into the girl's spirit. Sometimes, the maid would play soft music and, without hesitation, take the child's fragile hands in her own. They would sway gently, laughing at their clumsy little dance in the middle of the grand, empty room. At night, she tucked the girl in with stories not of sickness but of dreams, tales of bravery, hope, and love. The little girl began to giggle again, her voice filling the mansion with a melody that had long been missing. The millionaire, often watching from a distance, struggled to understand. He had spent fortunes chasing after cures and comforts, yet this humble woman, with no medical expertise, was giving his daughter something priceless, happiness. In the girl's brightening eyes, he saw a flicker of strength he had almost forgotten. It was as if the maid had reached into the child's heart and pulled her back toward life, not through wealth or science, but through something simpler, something purer. For the first time in months, the mansion no longer felt like a hollow prison. It was beginning to feel like a home again. The change was slow, almost unnoticeable at first, but soon it became impossible to ignore. The little girl, once too weak to sit up on her own, now asked to go outside to feel the sunlight on her face. Her laughter grew stronger, her appetite returned, and her cheeks carried a soft glow of life that no medicine had managed to restore. Doctors who had nearly given up on her were astonished. Test results began to show improvement, baffling even the most experienced specialists. They asked the millionaire what new treatment he had tried, but he had no answer. The only new presence in their lives was the maid, whose love and care seemed to be doing the unthinkable. One evening, as the maid brushed the child's hair and sang softly, the millionaire approached her, his voice trembling. "Tell me, how are you doing this? What is your secret?" The maid looked up, her eyes heavy with unspoken pain. "I once had a daughter," she whispered. "She was sick too, but I was poor. I couldn't save her with doctors or money. All I had was love, and though it wasn't enough for her, I learned something. A child's spirit must never be abandoned. Love gives them a reason to keep fighting." Tears filled the millionaire's eyes. In that moment, he realized the unbelievable truth: what billions could not buy, compassion had awakened. His daughter was healing, not just in body, but in soul. The mansion that had once echoed with silence was now alive with laughter. The little girl, stronger than anyone had dared hope, ran through the hallways, her small footsteps tapping like music against the marble floors. Her smile lit up the grand house more brightly than any chandelier ever could. The millionaire watched in awe, his heart swelling with a gratitude he couldn't put into words. One afternoon, as his daughter hugged the maid tightly, he stepped forward, tears glistening in his eyes. With a trembling voice, he said, "You are more than a maid, you are an angel. You gave me back my child." The maid shook her head gently. "I only reminded her how to live. Love did the rest." Her words carried a quiet power, and for the first time, the millionaire realized that true wealth was not measured in money, but in kindness, connection, and the courage to care. That night, as the family sat together, father, daughter, and maid, the mansion no longer felt like a lonely monument of riches. It had become a home, warm with love and laughter. The millionaire knew he would never be the same man again. The story of a little girl's healing was not about doctors, treatments, or fortune spent, it was about the simple, selfless power of humanity. Sometimes, the greatest cure is not found in wealth or science, but in love itself. And that truth would stay with them forever, a light brighter than all the gold in the world.